feed, which we are streaming online. Brighton-based production company Tilt have brought this amazing kit with them this evening to stream tonight's performance live around the world in 360 degrees. In a few moments, people from all over the globe will be transporting themselves into this very room with their virtual reality headsets. It's all very cool. Shortly, I'll introduce the show to our online audience, but first I just need to share a few housekeeping points. Our barman this evening is Sandro, who runs the cafe during the day. He's on his own tonight, so please be patient if you're waiting for a drink. We'll also be serving drinks at the interval around 8:50 for 15 minutes, and after the show at 9:45 until 10:30, so do stick around, have a drink, and meet the performers. Toilets are located downstairs through that door. Just follow the signs, and I'm sure you'll find your way. And if the fire alarm does sound, which hopefully it won't, please make your way to the fire exits, which are that way, and that way. The church has also asked that we refrain from using flash photography, so please do keep that in mind if you're taking any snaps. Finally, we are filming this show this evening both as a live stream, on video, and a camera will also be taking stills. So we're almost ready to start. I'll do my introduction to our online audience. Good evening, everyone. I'm Meredith Collins, and welcome to the live stream of Jizz. What's in a name? Never thought I'd hear myself say that in front of a live audience, but here we are. Tonight, English poet John Davies is staging his show Jizz right here in this beautiful Regency surroundings of St George's Church in Kemptown in Brighton. The church, to give you a little bit of history, was built at the request of Thomas Reed Kemp, who in the early 19th century created and financed the new estate named after him on the East Cliffs of Brighton. Kemp fled the country to escape debts at the time the construction of the church was finished. St George's became famous through its connection with the consort of King William IV, Queen Adelaide, who was very popular and even spent time in Brighton. When here, she worshipped at St George's. Today, the church is renowned as a music venue because of its amazing acoustics and atmosphere. Tonight, John Davies will be performing several poems from Jizz, his new and selected collection, which will be published in Britain by Kingston University Press and in the States by Red Hen Press. So, this is a launch show supported with funding from Arts Council England. John is accompanied by musician Helen Lunt on cello, keyboard and flute, and by dancers Harriet Morris and Rosa Firbank. So, ladies and gentlemen, here in our audience in Brighton and live around the world, let's start the show.
In the sunlight with the tousled hair comes up to me at the gate and says, "Nice bike. His has 36 gears, mine just 18. In one, you can go up any hill easy," he says, before pushing off. Stuck on the back, he has a stick with a flag, a skull and crossbones, black and white, on a bright red background. A blackbird sings. It's one of those days adventures begin. The ward. The cervix dilating, 2, 5, 10. The quiet hospital and patches of dark. The blue avenue to the cream and sharrow green. Footsteps of passers-by, children's artwork. A curtain drawn back, welcome your grandfather to your stage. Nursed in your mother's arms, the star that called us here. Swaddled, blinking, tiny. How simply exquisite you are. How can I, swamp of experience, come to this your cradle with adult faults so manifold? Yet Tommy, for all we know, a baby may be the very shield we're waiting for. Dusk. Before the blonde child in the red crash helmet had fallen before him from the scooter on the steep pavement so close to the rush hour road, he'd seen it coming, scooped her up in his great spread of arms, had them outstretched a while before she fell. Brave girl, he cooed. She scowled, rubbing her elbow in the half-light. Her mum took a while with her cigarette glow and carrier bags. He's a boy, she said. I'm a boy, she said. Well, he replied, there you go. Song thrush. This morning my mother comes to sing for me from a tall elm many years after her death. She sings in the form of a song thrush on a high branch in clear air. Or is it the shade of a young woman I knew once on a ship who killed herself unwittingly? She sings from dawn till breakfast and on towards 11, though every note thrown to the suburbs so enthusiastically reminds me of dream waking to its sound at daybreak, its clarion call, heaven on earth, freely given from its widened beak and bursting speckled chest, calling. Winter. Wait. Watch a scimitar of heath chicane along the fence post silhouettes. Careen along the hillside's windward crease, as drab as the branches where it settles. Wait. See the ground start up and fly and leave its long legged shadows in the snow. Observe a wing of primrose in the sky. How long it takes for anything to grow. Wait. Count dull barbs on silver wire, sodium stars that pierce the closing dusk. Wheat stalks scorched in the harvest fire, the total sum of humanity's flux. Will waiting help us understand how much of us is there? How much of there is us? On finishing reading Gilbert White by Richard Mabey. As clear as Christmas, I see the catkins she pointed out on the nature walk along the lane behind our school. Finch green with a secret yellow dusted from the pores and crevices of each tiny lantern bell. How high they seem to hang to the children holding hands, how gently bowed their branches to our ground. Each catkin seemed to speak of some direct connection between the tree and the pet, the sound of trees, the purr. So Pussy Willow, with its fur and little leather cap, its white eye and straight limb, had to be some hybrid in a world the catkins knew but we could only dream of. Although she knew, she took us there and showed us something in the trees that has no name. Like you, we wait for its returning every spring. Some of us still think it worth a note in an email to a friend. How the frog spawn sparkled in the pond in early March, but disappeared by Easter Day. How rarely now the swallows fly above the house, and though a blue tit fires itself from the nesting box on the shed, how the heart aches for a martlet in the eaves or a nightjar on the evening breeze. Spring. Wait and see the ancient con of soup cooling on the canteen steel top, to boys who cannot sleep at Christmas Eve, of prey the lions yet to catch. Believe, we're told, and all will be revealed, as if we're children waiting for a treat like spring. But winter light reveals an awkward truth of half-truth, half worth waiting for, that's good and bad, not either or, etched with uncertainty. The smiles fetched through irony's despairing business day by day mean more than anyone can say, save this: whatever you salvage of yourself, treasure what you have of love. Come the summer, we'd gather sticks and chains to thrash the knotweed exported from Japan to the field and copse behind our house, all that remained of an ancient doomsday woodland. Its hollow stems reminded me of torture stories from the Second World War, of how a man would be immobilized above sharpened bamboo shoots. The plants would burst in and through the body. Using canes for bows, my hand would often slip along a split. How the bamboo cut, how the cuts would sting. Inside each cane, some white pulp, like the stuff inside the pods of ripe broad beans. And I imagined from my comics, inside the heads of people too, when the bombers came. Eden. I loathe, adore this boxed-in landscape. Field clouds, brown chalk, a searchlight scabious among the fumy wild thyme, chucking birds in sour trees, trunks, fence posts lichen yellow, the smudged textile of sky, cloud, sunlight the color of needle, stitched with coltsfoot gold, edged with blackthorn sculpts. Over some brow the wind flaps, full tilt from the northeast. Veils of cloud smoke, skin pinning rain. Body, raiment, clothes. It's tempting to hope. My island. The silence is broken by the silence itself. Something else is listening, except at night when crabs in their zillions scriggle on the shore. I take the green pill first and spend a day lost inside an engine made of glue. In the water there's a woman's face, a giantess who stretches deep across the bay. When the rain is warm, I wash. When cold, I hide, imagining the buckets I do not have filling to the brim. The knife I'd hidden when I took the drugs, I cannot trace. By day, I try to catch the crabs I hear at night, but never do. My eyes next to the sand, I watch the insects traffic. The beach smells of sisal, damp earth, salt and something else. A boat fizzes to the dock. I step aboard. On the other side of the trees, nothing is happening. Nothing I can see anyway. Fish out of water. The mermaid may appear, whatever time the tide, whatever hour the lock gates shut the harbour pool. Her face may rise through oily swell when all of us are loading or unloading cargo, hiding contraband with a shifty look. She'll play a while, then I'll meet her at the harbour steps, lift her bodily dripping wet, smelling of whelk and estuary, let her soak my jeans and shirt and face, her arms around my neck, the weight of her against me. I kiss her salty breasts. She leans her forehead close to mine and murmuring encourages my hand behind her tail. I turn her on my lap and with both hands slide her, wishing I could follow back where where she belongs, back where she belongs. Game of catch. Mum, the kids, Dad, caught and wrapped in arms and kisses. NMUH, that's what this is. All the patients' comings and goings, all the visitors' toings and froings, all the staff on call and off, all the movement, all the stuff, all the connections, all the skills, all the cures for all our ills, all the patience and the care, all the knowing someone's there, all the wipes, all the towels, all the instruments and bowls, all the dressings, all the stitches, all the tears, all the kisses. How we ache, how we feel, how they answer each appeal, how the chase is always on, how the chase is never done, how love chases you and me, how we chase it constantly. Auscultation. He's lying on the floor with his stethoscope, listening to something, the sounds of the giant, the whirrings and rhythmic thrummings, the crepitations from deep within its bowels. The organs of the Leviathan murmur in all their separate compartments. Beneath the Marley, lurking in the subways, dodging staff and patients, there are ghosts. They congregate for a fag in the lift machinery room, take turns to slide the ducts, play hide and seek in the substation. Their real business is something other. They orchestrate the engine of the hospital, the bruit of its wings and arteries, the xylophone of its spinal corridors, the pulse of arrivals and departures. He's lying on the floor with his stethoscope, listening to something beyond the individual, the peculiar harmony of the whole machine. Though colleagues question his unorthodox approach. Body mapping. Waiting for his taxi in reception, weighing up the signs, he thinks about the hospital as a body, made up of all the different bodies he's seen treated here, including his. Upstairs are the private parts, where he had his waterworks examined by cystoscopy. Just thinking of it makes him desperate for a wee. Downstairs, on the other side, is the leg, though he can't remember if it's right or left. The fracture clinic, where Ken had his broken tibia, or was it fibula, put right. Down the passage on the other side is the head, where dozens queue every day to see the ophthalmologists as best they can. He's stared back at many an unknown watcher on the wrong end of a telescope with someone squeezing chili in his eye. The arms of the maternity unit, where Julie gave birth to his granddaughter in a bath. He wasn't allowed in, except on the final push, Ken had somehow slipped and broke his leg. So Grandad was the first to hold Charlize Pascal, now known as Tommy, while they got her dad disentangled from her mum and the umbilical cord. He sits now in the mouth with a cup of tea from the WRVS. He imagines leaving with a giant's gentle kiss. baby, baby, where did our glove go? Amidst the rusks and mortgages, small arguments lay festering, unsquared by goodnight kisses. Their children's primary school, the scene of petty jealousies and spite, whether his kiss was too affectionate or she had too many male friends on social media. It all took getting used to, and no one was used to it at all. Year 5 was like a period of Pol Pot. Their desire decapitated by arguments, their relationships' decline reached key stage 2. Shrugs, silence, and an atmosphere so bitter the kids no longer cared. One parents' evening, it all came to a head. The older lad was skipping class, each blamed the other. In front of all the school, a stand-up row. He slept on the sofa at his mate's. Next day, she rang the law firm up the road. Gloves on or off, they never held hands again. Hawkish. A military strategist, a scout. His constant eyes could pierce armour, maps, excuses. Softly spoken, yet the clout to win the loyalty of all his chaps. The jaw above the turtleneck that traps one collar wing is resolute. The mouth steel. Yet gentle, the cradled hand that wraps a pair of specs worn since the move down south. Nested now with his niece in Haywards Heath, she's rescued many a wounded bird of prey. He pinions the duality of truth, with one wing trapped, the other flying free. Swans pair for life. He'd swap every hour of solitary flight to be with her. Oh. Channels. She sends me a message by Facebook, which pops up rather surprisingly because I didn't know they could do that. I reply to one of her 10 different email addresses. She sends me a tweet. I send her a video by WhatsApp, which may have been the wrong thing to do. She answers with an email to all my 6 email addresses, including Gmail and Yahoo. I give her a call on her mobile. She doesn't answer but sends me a text. I text back and for good measure ring her office number and leave a voicemail. She responds by Pinteresting a photo of me. I say what I think about this on Google Circles. I receive a letter from her solicitor. I ring her mobile and manage to get through, but she cuts me off. I receive another letter from her solicitor. I write on her Facebook wall what I think about solicitors. She says I'm just avoiding communication. I say I never know where to find her communication. She says I'm just avoiding mature communication. I send her a picture of 2 fingers on Instagram. Ceramic. There's a wall curving straight through our hearts. There's always a wall. Each brick was carefully placed in the wall that curves through our hearts. Knuckles were torn, nails broken, hearts torn. Men have died building the wall that curves straight through our hearts. and the path along the wall. We gather the children there to teach them our wall-building skills, to tell them the history of the wall, to keep it in good repair. For without the walls curving, how would they know which path to follow? Stay close to the wall, keep away from the open land beyond. The wall that curves straight through our hearts keeps us safe. The wall that curves straight through our hearts keeps us all safe. My favorite part of the show. For Max to mark the opening of his new shed. Let's go down to the shed again, my old mate. Let's go down to the shed again and talk until it's late, till bottles lie empty in the grass and stars fill the sky, and we've put the world to rights, you and I. Do you remember those rainy days? School in Booth Wells, the cigarettes, the old library, those inaccessible girls? Forest brought us together. Forest took you to knots. Forest draws us together again in spite of all they've lost. That unbeaten league game record, the glory days of Clough, supporting the Reds over the years, has been surprisingly tough. Yet through them we won our friendship, stronger as each day goes by. Though now you've got a shed, so good for yourself, I'm starting to wonder why. Oh, what a shed you've got! Somewhere to carve your name with pride and enjoy a sneaky smoke, though you may have sowed the seeds of change, allowing a drum kit inside. Still, amidst the snare and the hi-hat, young Peppy can follow your lead and learn the arts of the Shedman, those moments of solace and grace. We'll forget the odd occasion when you were off your face. Those times when the wind seems to listen and the afternoon curls into dusk. When words between friends aren't needed and nothing is too much to ask. Gone are the days in West Bridgeford with the old allotment shed when you spent so much time inside it you never grew any veg. No apples, no courgettes, no marigolds, just weed as thick as thatch. That's when the old folks decided to drum you off their patch. And now you've got a shed to be proud of. And room for your cat, dear old Larn. I expect you won't be away so much in your Volkswagen camper van. Now what do you do about a problem like Maria? She's the love of your life, no doubt. But a word of advice from me in the shed, put a sign up, women keep out. Let me say once for all, it's a pleasure and an honour I'll never forget to be asked to cut the ribbon to open the way to your shed. Here's me. Oh, we did it. Here's me in banking and finance. You a psychiatric nurse. No doubt we'll be friends forever, even beyond the hearse. And whatever we've shared to get here, whatever we've shed in the past, let's shed much more in the future and share a full life to the last. So let's go down to the shed again, my old mate. Let's go down to the shed again and talk until it's late, till the bottles lie empty in the grass and stars fill the sky, and we put the world to rights, you and I. Have you ever imagined the effort involved in getting Giuseppe to the airport on time? The fact there's an airport to be on time to, for a start, let alone the infrastructure of the power generation system and the rail network that delivers him to the Skygate. And just as importantly, the industrial base that had to exist before alkaline batteries could turn the hands of an alarm clock made in Japan that woke him in Italy. And perhaps more significantly, the fact that Giuseppe woke up and got out of bed at all, reasonably conscious of what he was doing, although not feeling on top of the world. glove compartment. In his cubicle, he feels like Dilbert in his frame, stuck between analysis finance on his right and help desk Europe to his left. Driving home, wedged between a Volvo and an Audi in his 03 Nissan, he mistimes a turn, ends up stranded in a cross-hatched square. My life's like this, he thinks, watching other drivers lose their rag. Every night sandwiched between his missus and their 8-year-old who's having trouble sleeping on his own. Weekends hemmed in by visits to aging parents and giving lifts to stepkids he's never really known. His dreams are filled with empty spaces, but when he wakes, before he hides behind the cereal at breakfast, the thought occurs to him in the smallest room how pretty much all life ends up in some kind of box. homecoming. You're home from hospital next week. I'm fixing brackets for curtain rods in the downstairs room that will be yours. I use my father's tools, the few I took just weeks ago after his death. And on them are his hands, his eyes, his breath. These curtains will hang, be open, closed, day after day. Sometime towards the end of summer, your mother will step into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, closing the curtains to behind her, thinking of picking up the phone. From your house in the far distance, I see the Chattree white on the downs. Where the streets end, reflections from cars twinkle in the haze like tiny stars. The suburbs glaze in a blue silence. You're not yet home, though soon will be. Earthed. The day I sheltered there was no snow, though snowy hair and winter thoughts had drawn me up past Tilton Wood and Pearson's Wish. That autumn day, I lay down at the foot of Bostel Hill, a miniature of all that lay above, and cried away my grief and all my love. The rhythm of the chalk, its roll and turn, holds me in a strong and timeless trance. The comfort of the ground beneath Bo Peep and Jerry's Pond. She who was once frozen stone naps now in the hill, a giantess asleep before she wakes to dance. Elegy for Kevin Elliott. I know it's sad, all this going. I have the English dread of change, want it always all the same, prefer to channel loss, not growing. This elegiac tone really gets my goat, everything shrouded in sentimental mist. Poems written in the aftermath, the poet pissed. I think we should take elegy by the throat and shake it hard, that by its strangled cry we might detect what poetry it really has to offer, or whether these mourning togs and poser coiffure simply hide a fear to die. So when you left with ne'er a word, and friends who loved to see you had no chance for one last hug or dance, what use is elegy? I think what you preferred was viper wit, gossip, tales of all you knew. Anything to regale your friends who can't believe it's true. There is no more of you. The big picture. I'm staring at my Coke as bubbles appear as if from nowhere. Is there a frogman in my drink or a frog? Unlikely in cola. The bubbles follow each other in a squadron, then weave to dodge an obstacle. An exclamation mark balloons above my head. Oh, I say. Deep within me, empty spaces form that you can't see. Hunger pains, indigestion, Anxiety, more like, about what's in my drink. My colon groans again, a wordling, burbling, gurgling, bawbering me rise. I can't stop imagining what's going on inside, these hidden things I feel. Rumble belly, collie wobbler, Christ, I'm scared. What's inside keeps seeping out slowly through our lives. Seen in the cinema of the universe, do we just go pop? On the Road. What a great title. That grey, enormous night en route to Scarborough in Trevor's minivan. To see the eastern sunrise on the winter solstice. 7 of us scraped together the petrol money for the trip from Morecambe. But the cigarettes ran out halfway there, and no one could have prophesied the cow. We came across it in the fog, and the motorcyclist dazed beside it, helmet askew, goggles cracked. I hit the bloody thing, he says. We ought to move it. We liked the we. He's tentatively pulling at a hoof. The fog is closing in. The cow is black and white, huge and dead. I imagine every HGV in the north of England bearing down on this section of the A684. 7 students and a motorcyclist who says it's got the bloat, as if he's knowledgeable about such things, try and move the beast. But the 4 on one side must be pulling harder than the others. The carcass tilts like a capsizing yacht. The legs heel over and the cow's stomachs hit the tarmac with a flabby slap. A zeppelin of gas escapes the corpse. A smell the size of Yorkshire encompasses the group, who stagger around, arms outstretched, like victims in some weird zombie horror. Worth a try, the motorcyclist says after something of a pause. Then, as headlights crest the brow, he mutters darkly, but maybe not. The boy in the sunlight with the tousled hair comes up to me at the gate. Nice bike. We compare notes. His has 36 gears, mine just 18. In one you can go up any hill easy, he says, before pushing off. Stuck on the back he has a stick with a flag, a skull and crossbones, black and white, on a bright red background. A blackbird sings. It's one of those days adventures begin. Okay.
Anyway, there you go. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. We much appreciate it. As I think you probably read in the programme, this is the second of 2 performances we've been doing. We did one down near Glastonbury a couple of weeks ago. And we'd very much appreciate your feedback, whatever it is, as we refine the show towards a national launch next year. I just want to say a couple of very big thank yous. First of all, to Helen, who's just a tremendous musician, and I think you have to do that. I haven't got the bouquet. And to Harriet and Rosa, who in a very short space of time have choreographed and rehearsed the dance sequences, which I hope you agree really add something and create a wonderful feature. A couple of other thank yous just to St George's for what a lovely venue. Isn't it absolutely beautiful? The acoustic here is fantastic. And in the second half, you're going to hear from some guest poets, Kate Gale from America, Ciaran O'Driscoll from Ireland, and 2 guest musicians, Pete Howells, who's based in Brighton, and Margaret Farrelly, also from Ireland. So thank you very much to them for coming along this evening. And finally, also a very big thank you to Meredith, our guest presenter, who's doing a fantastic job. So I'm going to say bye-bye for now. One big last thank you to my wife, Rosie, who is just brilliant. So thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you after the break. Thank you very much. Oh, God, I really cocked that up. But
tonight's guest poets, Ciaran O'Driscoll. Kieran is with me now. Kieran, you're an acclaimed poet from Ireland. Tell us a little about yourself and where you're from.
I'm from Ireland. I live in Limerick City. I used to teach in the Limerick College of Art. I've spent a lot of my time in my life writing. I think I began at about the age of 16 when I was bored in the study hall in a boarding school. Having finished my assignments for the next day, I began to write heroic couplets after the manner of Alexander Pope, and I haven't looked back since.
Fantastic. And there's been a long-standing relationship between Brighton and Limerick, hasn't there?
Yes. The story is a story of two festivals, one which was organised by John Davies, who performed here tonight so magnificently, and one which was organised by myself and some others in Limerick, which was, there was an exchange between the two festivals. Sadly, the Limerick Festival is in abeyance at the moment. We're not saying it's finished, but we're waiting for some new initiative from the Limerick Arts Office. John has gone his own way, and but the amazing thing is that the connections have stayed and have even expanded to America. Pig Hog Press, which John was the editor of, has been taken over by Red Hen Press in California.
And you have a collection coming out with Red Hen Press soon, don't you?
I do. It's a printing or a republishing of a book that I published originally in 2009 called Life Monitor. I'm really looking forward to seeing that book back in print again. Thanks to Red Hen and thanks to Kate Gale, who is here tonight and is herself a poet and will be reading here with me. Kate is a prolific writer and has published several prose works as well as poetry, one of which I read myself, Lake of Fire, which tells about her life in a cult in America, which she eventually escaped from. A very tough lady, but at the same time a very sympathetic lady, I would say. Yeah.
We'll be hearing from Kate later this evening. Exactly. Tell us a little bit about the style of your poetry.
It's difficult to talk about the style. I think I tend to be, I suppose, ironic. People in Italy nickname me Kieranico, as you can guess, an amalgam of my name and the word ironico, which is the Italian for ironic. So I tend to be satirical and ironical, but I do have my lyrical moments as well, which I hope you'll hear some of tonight.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. Kieran will be reading later this evening. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Meredith.
We'll be back in just a moment with another interview with one of our performers tonight. Stay tuned. Kate Gale, who will be reading later this evening. Kate, tell us a little bit about your poetry.
Well, I write a lot of narrative poems that tell a story of some kind. A lot of my poems are inspired by reading the Bible a lot when I was a child. So the Bible has all these great stories, and so I kind of think about what those stories are like if you put them in modern day life, in which they actually don't make very much sense sometimes. But I like to think about them because they're sort of my first stories.
So you draw a lot on modern day life, and you live in California.
Yes, so I think there's a lot of beaches and tequila in my poems because that's what we've got.
And you're the managing director of Red Hen in California, which is the publishing company that is producing Jizz next year.
Yes, and we're also we also have Pig Hog as part of our press now, and so we're reprinting some of the Pig Hog authors, and some of them just to be sold here in the UK, and some of them to be sold in the UK and in the United States for people that want to.
This isn't your first trip to Brighton, is it? What was your original gig here?
So my original trip here, John had invited me to come to some reading, and I was reading all these poems about being angry, because I was feeling very angry at the time, mostly angry at men. And so when I was reading, all the women in the audience started stomping and getting super excited. And then John told me that a lot of the women that were so excited about my angry women poems were gay. And lots of lesbians are not angry at men, obviously, but this little group was. So there was all this energy in the room, and everyone was buying me a beer, and I was just like, this is fantastic. I have to come back to Brighton. So I've been back here a few times, and I love it here.
Will we be hearing some of your angry poems later tonight?
No, I haven't been writing very many angry poems for a little while, but it's certainly energetic poems.
What's your style of writing? Do you have a particular way that you like to write, a particular place?
Well, I like to get to a quiet place in myself, read some poetry, and then dive in, because I think that poetry is like a different language, and so you have to enter this other language to be able to write poetry. It's not the same language that you would use for writing anything else, in my opinion.
Who inspires you at the moment for your poetry?
I'm really into Ishion Hutchinson. He's I guess a Caribbean poet, but he lives in New York, and his writing is very lush, and it just like I read it, and every time I get something else out of it.
Tell me a little bit about some of the other poets that you publish with as part of Red Hen. Do you focus on a particular style, or do you like variety?
We definitely like variety. We published 3 books with Chris Abani, and we've published a couple books with Percival Everett. Peggy Shoemaker is a very lyric poet that we publish. Douglas Kearney is a African-American poet, and he does a lot of spoken word. David Mason is a very formal poet that we publish. So I like to think that we publish the best of a number of different genres and don't just focus on one thing. And there are some very fine presses that focus on one aesthetic, but what we've tried to do is recognize excellence in a number of different aesthetics, and I find them very exciting.
So whatever grabs you, you go for it.
Yes, yeah, but I definitely want it to be something that is well crafted, that the poet is working at the top of their craft.
And so tonight's poems, what are we about to hear from you?
There's a couple poems about running the publishing company. Well, it won't say that directly, but it's about sort of a journey, an adventurous journey, and then some poems from the Bible.
Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be hearing from Kate Gale in just a few moments. Stay tuned. If everyone could please take a seat, we're about to begin the second half. If everyone could please take a seat, we're about to begin the second half.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I please ask you to take your seats? The next session's about to begin.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In the second part of our programme this evening, you'll hear from musician Pete Howells, poets Kate Gale and Kieran O'Driscoll, and Irish musician Margaret Farrelly, who plays tin whistle and fiddle. So to open our second half, playing a song from his new album, Dead Cat Bounce, please welcome Brighton-based singer-songwriter Pete Howells.
I'm waiting for that to come on. Can I just introduce this song while I've got a few seconds? There are two songs on the album that I've got, which is next to an excellent copy of a book of poetry called Jizz, I believe. At the back there. There's two songs on it which are sort of quasi-religious songs, and I thought it'd be quite apt to have that in a church. This one imagines the disciple Peter after his night in Gethsemane when Jesus was betrayed, and years later he finds himself back up on the hill looking over at Golgotha, the place of the skull where Jesus was ultimately crucified. I'm not a religious person, but the story fascinates me, so it's called The Devil's Garden. Still dark, still warm in the devil's garden. Red wine, fresh bread on the tip of my tongue. When you're under pressure, well, hearts will harden. Said we had to stay awake until the job was done. Broken leaves, olive trees on the hillside. Sweat like drops of blood falling down. Something like a thorn stabbing at my inside. My feet planted hard on the stony ground. Still sleeping when the soldiers came. Nobody asked my name. I pulled out a blade, I cut off an ear. He said, this is the power of darkness here. This is the power of darkness. Someone said I'll be back before the morning. Couldn't say for certain where he'd been. When he came back without any warning. Not the first time I've seen a kiss, when a kiss is not what it seems. Still sleeping when the soldiers came. Nobody asked my name. I pulled out a blade, cut off an ear. He said, this is the power of darkness here. This is the power of darkness. Still go back some nights to the devil's garden, looking for answers, but my mind stays dull, praying that I won't get too much temptation. Find my eyes still drawn to the place of the skull. Find my eyes still drawn to the place of the skull. Find my eyes still drawn to the place of the skull.
I'm going to start with a poem that's about what it's like to start a publishing company, which John knows is so much fun. The house that Jack built. We built a house of glass in the woods. Rain came in. The rain came in through the skylight, open windows. We sealed the house. Water seeped under the foundation. We built canoes to navigate the stream from kitchen to bedroom, all the bookshelves up high. The cement floor wore away to gravel. We lived in a stream bed in a glass house until the sun came out. It became hot, humid. Orchids filled the place, their tendrils of longing everywhere. Visitors said our house was unnatural, but it seemed perfectly natural to us. Children tumbled amid orchids in summer, paddled streams in winter. Electricity not possible, but we didn't want it. Electricity would have forced us out of the glass house. We're still here, in the glass and mud, the unbalanced checkbooks, poems, and silence. We hear water, breath, the house letting in light. I have a son and a daughter. And my son is now 26, and he teaches English in Hanoi. But he had an adventurous childhood. And I wrote this when he was in high school. This is sort of a list poem of a list of things I found in his room over the years. Half-written note. In your room, a package of condoms, peach brandy, clean laundry folded, 3 street signs, broken camera, pipe, photo of a girl,
directions to a gas station, map of Acapulco, doorknob, Spanish guitar, 2 broken eggs in a cup, half-written note to me, Mom, took the train to see my sister, she needs. I call. You ask for directions from the train station to her place. I keep waiting for the pieces to fall into place like a sky map when you can suddenly see the stars laid out. I'd settle for one constellation, Stephen. Okay, so since we are in a church, I'm going to keep up with the religious thing too. So as a child, one of the stories in the Bible that really fascinated me was the 40 years it took the Israelites to get to Canaan. Because even as a kid, I could look at a map and see that wasn't very far. So either they needed GPS or they got lost, something happened. So this is actually kind of a California poem at the same time. It's called Fields. The children of Abraham left Egypt, crossed the Sinai Peninsula, entered Canaan after 40 years. A distance less than the stretch of miles from San Diego to Los Angeles, crossed on foot by the Jimenez family in 10 days. Papa Jimenez carried Clara on his shoulders. They sought farm work. The Israelites expected to work in the fields were guided by a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. The Jimenez family found guidance from a AAA map purchased at a Unical station near the border, a blue flashlight. They ate corn tortillas, missed pupusas and sopa. The Israelites ate manna and quail, longed for garlic and onions. The Hebrews died in Sinai, their children entered Canaan. The Jimenez parents died in trailers by the Ventura fields. Their children went to community college, opened a bakery. The children of Israel wander between San Diego and Los Angeles. They approach Gelson's, the strawberries fresh, the meat kosher. The Jimenez family attends Mass, eats blessed bread, drinks wine. So I have 2 last poems. This one is also based on a story in the Bible. For those of you who haven't been reading Matthew recently, I'll just tell you quickly. There's this story in the Bible about this bridegroom who arrives at his wedding late, and he is marrying 10 virgins. But 5 of them don't show up with the right amount of lamp oil, so they don't get to be his wife. And one wonders whether they are the smart girls or the dumb girls. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. 5 were wise, 5 were foolish. Some ran out of oil. Didn't get to be one of the main virgins. Only 5 had enough. Lucky bridegroom lines up his virgin, sets off fireworks in the bedroom. Heaven for men, women waiting eagerly with lamps for him to appear. In women's heaven, a long line of James Bonds waits until midnight for our arrival. Not a virgin among them. Each of them highly skilled lovers, masseurs, chefs, dancers, kissers, bartenders, comedians, and of course their acrobats. Fundamental difference between the sexes, it's all right there in the Bible. We require skill. Men are fine with a layabout. When we say kiss me, by God, you better know how. So this whole book, The Goldilocks Zone, was based on 4 inventions. The inventions of glass, condoms, fireworks, and bridges. So when I was studying the whole history of condoms, which were first invented to keep out STDs, I found a lot of stuff about Casanova, who really pushed the use of condoms. And it's an interesting thing because we think of Casanova, of course, as being an amazing lover, but everything we know about him, he wrote himself. So this poem is really about the planning process for my own autobiography. Casanova and the Aphrodite of the modern world. This window is the one he climbed out to escape his second arrest by the Inquisition. No glass, just an open space, curtain over it. There were bars. He escaped twice. Son of Italian performers, early ambition to be a priest, thrown out of seminary, decided to travel, visit all the capital cities, be expelled from them one by one. We see him lolling on beds, linen strewn, serving girl astride, dog barking down below, clothes on the mirror, smell of semen, chamber pot in the corner. We see him with ladies, maids, duchesses, hear cries of ecstasy. Casanova liked condoms made from lamb intestines or linen condoms tied off with a ribbon. Casanova fought duel after duel, carried off without a scratch, many near misses at the altar. Casanova's coach always just in time. Last 14 years of his life, corner of Bohemia, Chateau d'Aux. Casanova worked as a librarian, wrote his memoirs, spooled out his exploits, the twins who seduced him. Nin, Colette, Casanova captured something. Reveal what you wish. It's your story. Tell the story they want to hear. Story of desire, story of passion. I'm starting my diary. I am the greatest lover of the 21st century. Men who sleep with me never recover, nor do women. They are all of them mad. I am Aphrodite of the modern world. Music precedes me. Stories follow me. Give me 14 years at the Chateau d'Aux. My name will be synonymous with pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to play a slow air called
Words and lichen. I can't explain how much I love you. Can't find the words for how I feel. Words disappear beneath golden lichen. What's said eroded by what's real. Too late I know how much you loved me. Can't find the words for how I feel. Love disappears when you scam for riches. Dishonesty destroys what's real. Where the Shannon flows to Limerick, through valleys of green and gold, I dream of you through summer sunsets, even though our love's been sold. Sold my love to the highest bidder, sold my love on the market stall. Can't buy back the dreams of summer, the money men have changed them all. I broke your heart that cold December, moving money like children's toys. I broke your trust, your self-possession. My greedy heart stole all your joys. I watched the river unforgiven by my wife and unborn child, cruelly lost in the dead of winter, cruelly lost in the river wild. I still go to that country churchyard, still put flowers on the grave, and read those words in the stained glass chiding me, he cannot save. I can't explain how much I love you, can't find the words for how I feel. Words disappear beneath golden lichen, what's said eroded by what's real. Where the Shannon flows to Limerick, through valleys of green and gold, I dream of you through summer sunsets, even though our love's been sold.
She's my wife, you know. I begin with a short poem. It's called Kiss. That they should come together like this, all the golden suns and rains and generations, when I had said goodbye, in her footfall that followed me, in her lips touching mine. Did she know her kiss would teach me what words did not, that nobody need stay bereft? Out of nowhere she came, and afterwards, when a decent interval had passed, she left. That's why my ear is trained on your footfall, which brings me back myself, its missing pith, the gathered light and tenderness of all that blossoms from the brush of breath on breath. The next one is called The Speaking Trees, and it was written, it harks back. It wasn't written on a Maybank holiday, but it harks back to a Maybank holiday in 2005, when everything went wrong. We thought, instead of taking a tedious bus from a friend's place in North London down to Islington and then take the tube to some other place and then take the train to Stansted, we'd take a taxi. But we were caught in a tailback which lasted about an hour on that bank holiday Monday, and then we almost had an accident, almost crashing into a motorcyclist. We missed the plane in Stansted. I lost my passport. We had to book a new flight from Gatwick, so we had to cross London on a bank holiday. Tempers began to flare. Luckily, my driving license was still accepted as identity in those days. But anyway, I transmuted this over the years into the idea of a bad day at the office. And then the one thing I remember, the one positive thing I remember from that day was that I looked at some trees on the edge of the airport and they seemed to be waving at me. So this is called the Speaking Trees. We have troubles, said the trees, but we don't worry. We're a green stripe on the edge of a grey airport after your bad day at the office. We're a shout in your eye, an outburst of arboreal cheer. Ours is a different time scale. We're content to hold tight here while you rush to and fro. We haven't too much sympathy for the edgy. There's something keeps us singing on the edge of existence or an airport. We offer perspective by our comportment, which is quite other. Soon, any moment now, you will lift your head, and the sight of us will put proportion on the day's trouble. Help you become more rooted, in the sense that moving creatures may be so. We are the leafy yes in your day of no, endured where speed spins all colours to a grey community. But we will slow you down when we enter your head. Your thoughts will stop darting, though you'll still be able to shake an arm about. You may wave at us if you like. Pretend you are waving at friends. It may be true. What's about to happen when you meet our gaze could very well be called a greeting. We are the masters of mobility because we have learned to move while staying put. And we feel we are ideally placed here on the rim of vision to supply you with a sustaining image. We're afraid you have become deaf to the cheering of trees. You're out of touch with your branches and leaves. You could also do with understanding time, how to behave within it. This is not done well by searching feverishly among pockets for your ticket. You have far too many pockets. Between departure lounge and boarding steps, we'd love to tell you of those other steps, the grasslands of the great indifference. In a few more seconds, when you notice us, you'll know that nothing matters much. The state of the finances, the meltdown at the office, tailbacks, missed departures, engineering works. We could say the same thing more starkly in winter, but we feel that you need a touch of colour in how the message is phrased. Something green catches your eye, although it's going nowhere, and a quality you thought extinct still lives. In a language fallen out of use, it speaks of surprises and potentials in yourself, the strength to let go and find unlikely comfort in a stand of trees on a grey airport's edge. Look now and don't be ashamed to wave at us as you show your boarding card to the hostess. When you sit and shut your eyes on all the stress, you'll fall into our dance of rootedness. This poem is called Johann's Reprimand, and it's this year is a centenary of the birth of a favourite poet of mine, W.S. Graham. He's a Scottish poet, and there's a competition to have a poem published in an anthology, and I had a shot at it. A favourite poem of mine by W.S. Graham is Johann Joachim Quantz's 5 Lessons, which depicts a warm relationship between Quantz, who was a flautist and composer, and his student, who was called Carol. My offering here imagines that the student was not as good as he should be, and he was cut out by Johann one day when Johann was on a walk in a compromising position. The competitors were invited to make references to poems by W.S. Graham, so there are some lines here which some people might say I've stolen, but it's really what's called intertextuality these days. There's a lot of controversy about intertextuality, I believe, and the difference between intertextuality and plagiarism. But in this case, I've been given the okay by the organisers of the competition to quote from W.S. Graham. As Johann's Reprimand. Carl, I cannot teach you any further, and here's the reason why. I chanced upon you yesterday during my postprandial walk. Locked out on the other side of language, one arm resting on some female's hips, you were shouting the choicest maledictions at a bunch of louts who were giving back as good. Until I saw you, Carol, I was happy, hearing 1,000 crackles in the ice, the canal's slow release from Bruegel's winter. How can I show him anything else of worth, I thought, copping you drunk and foul-mouthed in a tavern doorway with a window girl. Go home and don't return to me unless you learn to respect a flautist's calling by shunning places where your music falls on the deaf ears of layabouts and grifters, where the classics and the masters are dumbed down, reduced to jingles. What would your patron say if he heard that you were making extra cash to spend on prostitution, beer, and schnapps? The utter insolence of you to come here, reeking of last night's debauchery. I pray the Lord will bring you to your senses. Put a lump of coal on the fire before you leave. And finally, bed night. Bed night is a term used in the tourist industry as a kind of a quantitative measurement. How many bed nights did your hotel achieve last year? It's like, how many litres of milk did your cows produce last year? So I use this word bed night in this poem just to show that, that there's more to bed nights than just a matter of measurement and a matter of successful hotels and unsuccessful. Things actually go on and happen in bed nights. So bed night, 2 pages back, finishing up now. The bed night kiss went on, like love that holds forever. But bed and breakfast come and gone, a couple had to sever. And when there's talk of bed nights now, I think of only one. The night an angel slept with me, head on my shoulder bone. A bed night we could just afford to share, long bed nights gone. And when that one-stop room and board was ended, you'd begun. A bed night's love could not take hold in horrid times. However, the way you stand there, 12 years old, reminds me of your mother. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, John.
Microphone on, please. I'd like you to imagine, if you will, sitting in a church and being 7 or 8 years old and having a family, 5 of whom are lay preachers, 3 of whom are church pastors, and you're bored witless. But in front of you is a book, which is the Holy Bible. And in that book, the Holy Bible, there are 7 or 8 illustrations, which this little boy of 7 or 8 years old looked at many a time. There was one that particularly fascinated him, I know, because I was that little boy. And it was a picture of the road to hell and the road to heaven. And the road to heaven was this steep route that looked a bit difficult, but at the top of it all was Jesus and the angels and God sitting on his throne, and the Broadway, which was down below, was full of fairgrounds and beer tents and loose women. And this picture fascinated me, and I decided which route I'd take. This is a song which, if you'd like to check me out on YouTube, that's free, the album isn't. But it's right next to a book called Jizz, I believe, which is at the back as well. Make great Christmas presents, both of them. But on YouTube, this is a nice video of this on YouTube. I say nice video, it's got a 12-piece band behind it and lots of different actors doing things. So check it out if you've got the time. Jesus, is there something I missed? Younger, I saw the picture. Road to hell was broad and deep. The road to hell was something to be conquered. The narrow path was far too steep. So I never took the hillside for fear of falling into freezing air. I could see where that road was heading. It was paved with gold, but there was nothing really there. When I was was younger, I took the Broadway down to Paris via Dover-on-Sea. We took the boulevards and took the terraces, then I drove the National to Italy. And I never missed my hometown, the steelworks rusting in a cold north wind. Old man dragging round the streets with the handcart, crying rag and bone like a penance for their sin. Yeah, and I come from a family of hellfire preachers, a loving man with the Bible in their fists. And like a devil I can quote the scriptures, but Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I've missed? Jesus, something I've missed. Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I've missed? Jesus, is there something I've missed? Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I've missed? When I was younger, I took the Broadway down to Athens, stopped at Thessaloniki. Played the broad as it came out of Piraeus, with the raven hair across me and a hand upon my knee. And everywhere I heard the same sounds, optimism with a pessimistic air. And we could bless the weather as we did the Continental. We were tangled up in blue, but then we didn't really care. And I come from a family of hellfire preachers, a loving man with the Bible in their fist. And like a devil I can quote the scriptures, but Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I've missed? Jesus, is there something I've missed? Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I've missed? Jesus, is there something I've missed? Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I've missed? Jesus, something I missed. Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something I missed? Jesus, is there something I missed? Jesus, won't you tell me, is there something that I missed? Thank you very much. Great evening. Thank you for inviting me. Hope you've all enjoyed it.
Well, that concludes our live stream. Thank you so much for joining us here in St George's Church, and for everyone at home who joined us on the live stream. Huge thanks to all of our performers this evening: John Davies, Helen Lunt, Rosa Firbank, Harriet Morris, Pete Howells, Kate Gale, Margaret Farrelly and Ciaran O'Driscoll. And special thanks to this beautiful venue, St George's Church in Kemp Town. I'm Meredith Collins, and it's been a pleasure to be your host this evening. Thank you all for watching, and good night from Brighton.